There is a place on our planet that has earned a fearsome name. They call it the Graveyard of Empires. This land is Afghanistan. For over 200 years, the world's mightiest armies have marched into its valleys, confident in their power, their technology, their destiny. One by one, they learned the same harsh lesson. Afghanistan does not bow easily. The will of the people can prove stronger than steel. This is not just battles and tactics. It's about the human spirit. A nation forged in resistance. People who've seen empires come and go. British redcoats, 19th century. Soviet tanks, 20th century. American drones, 21st century. All face the same unyielding reality. How can a nation with so little stand up to nations with so much? The answer is felt, not seen. Courage, resilience, sheer determination. We will walk through history to understand this story of survival. Towering mountains, hidden valleys. We will look at the three great invasions: British, Soviet, American-led coalition. Time and again, superpowers underestimated the land and its people. A timeless epic. The human spirit to resist, endure, remain undefeated. Our journey today takes us into this mystery of survival, courage, and the unbreakable will of a people who have never been conquered. The story begins in the 19th century. The British Empire, the largest the world had ever seen, was playing a dangerous game of chess with Tsarist Russia. They called it the Great Game. Both empires wanted to control Central Asia. Afghanistan was the grand prize. In 1839, the British marched in to install a friendly ruler in Kabul. With disciplined redcoats and superior cannons, the invasion looked like a success. They took the capital and placed Shah Shuja on the throne. But they made a fatal error. They thought capturing cities meant capturing the country. They did not understand the Afghan people. Foreign soldiers were seen as invaders, stirring deep anger. Small uprisings spread across the countryside, led by local chieftains and tribal leaders. British garrisons, spread thin and isolated, found themselves increasingly surrounded. What began as confident occupation turned into desperate survival. In winter 1842, after devastating attacks, the British agreed to withdraw from Kabul. Around 16,500 people, soldiers, their families, and camp followers, began the treacherous march back to British India. Through freezing, snow-clogged passes they trudged and were relentlessly attacked. Of those 16,500, only one man, Army Surgeon Dr. William Brydon, was recorded reaching the fort at Jalalabad. He arrived exhausted, wounded, barely clinging to life. The news sent shockwaves through the British Empire. The invincible lion had been bloodied. The Graveyard of Empires had claimed its first modern victim. More than a century later, another superpower decided to ignore the lessons of history. In December 1979, the Soviet Union rolled its tanks into Afghanistan. Their mission, they claimed, was to support a friendly communist government that was struggling against a growing rebellion. They were the leaders of the Cold War world, commanding a vast and modern military machine. They believed they could crush the opposition in weeks. The Soviet invasion had the opposite effect. Instead of crushing the rebellion, it united the Afghan people against a common enemy. From every corner of the country, men took up arms. They called themselves the Mujahideen, or Holy Warriors, farmers, poets, students, bound together by their faith and their desire to expel the foreign invaders. The war that followed was not one of big battles. It was a war of ambushes, hit-and-run attacks, sabotage. The Soviets controlled the cities, the main roads, during the day but at night. The countryside belonged to the Mujahideen. The conflict became the Soviet Union's own Vietnam. It was a brutal, grinding war that dragged on for nearly a decade. The Soviets found themselves caught in a deadly quagmire. Their powerful tanks were vulnerable in narrow mountain passes. Their helicopters were vulnerable in steep valleys. For every Mujahideen fighter they killed, more seemed to rise up to take their place. The war drained the Soviet economy. It demoralized its army. Stories of the Mujahideen's bravery, like that of the legendary commander Ahmad Shah Massoud, the Lion of Panjshir, became symbols of the resistance. By 1989, facing mounting losses and with no victory in sight, the Soviet Union finally gave up. The televised withdrawal was a powerful symbol of their failure. It had also contributed to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union itself just a few years later. Once again, Afghanistan had proven that it would not be conquered. The bear had walked into the trap, and it had been forced to retreat, broken and bleeding. To truly understand why superpowers fail in Afghanistan, you must first look at a map. This is not a land of open plains where tanks can roam freely. It is a fortress designed by nature itself. The country is dominated by the Hindu Kush, peaks that soar over 7,000 meters into the sky. These mountains are like the teeth of a dragon, a jagged, unforgiving barrier slicing the country into isolated regions. For an invading army, this geography is a nightmare. It makes moving troops and supplies incredibly difficult, slow, and dangerous. A journey that should take hours can take days. These mountains create a perfect environment for guerrilla warfare. Deep valleys, narrow gorges, countless caves provide near infinite places for fighters to hide, regroup, launch surprise attacks. An Afghan fighter born here knows every path, every rock, every hiding spot. For a foreign soldier, the landscape is alien and threatening. A quiet valley can suddenly erupt in gunfire from all sides. Attackers melt back into the mountainside moments later. This is what happened to the British, the Soviets, and the Americans. Their technological advantage was often neutralized by a simple rock formation or a hidden cave. Afghanistan's geography creates isolated communities. Villages tucked away in remote valleys, largely self-sufficient, governed by local traditions. There is no single center of power to capture. Taking Kabul does not mean you have conquered Afghanistan. An invader would have to subdue every valley, every village, every tribe, one by one. This is an impossible task. This natural fortress limits modern technology. A billion-dollar fighter jet is of little use against fighters hidden in caves. Drones can be spotted, and their missiles can miss targets that are well camouflaged. Supply convoys moving through narrow passes are easy targets for ambushes with simple, homemade bombs. The land itself fights alongside its people, impassive, unyielding, and ultimately undefeated. History seemed to repeat itself on October 7, 2001. Following the terrible attacks of September 11th, United States and NATO allies launched an invasion. At first, Operation Enduring Freedom was a spectacular success. Overwhelming air power and Afghan anti-Taliban forces drove the Taliban from power in weeks. Symbols of the regime fell. It felt like a new dawn. However, victory soon gave way to a long occupation. Like the British and the Soviets before them, they tried to build a new democratic Afghanistan, pouring billions into a new government, army, police force. But they were outsiders in a land suspicious of foreigners. The Taliban were not destroyed. They retreated to the mountains across the border into Pakistan, regrouped, rearmed, and launched an insurgency. The war dragged on for 20 years, the longest in American history. A generation grew up knowing only conflict. For American and NATO soldiers, it was frustrating, confusing. An elusive enemy blended with civilians. The guerrilla tactics that bled Britain and the Soviets returned. Roadside bombs, suicide attacks, ambushes became daily. The end was swift and shocking. In August 2021, after the US announced withdrawal, the Taliban swept the country. The Afghan National Army collapsed in days. Dramatic scenes at Kabul airport, desperate evacuees. On August 15th, the Taliban walked back into the capital. Why did small bands of Afghan fighters consistently outlast the world's most powerful armies? They are fighting for their home, their family, their village, their faith. This gives them a level of resilience and determination that is almost impossible to break. Their strategy is patience. As a famous Afghan saying goes, "You have the watches, but we have the time." This is why technology ultimately failed. No amount of bombs, tanks, or drones could extinguish this spirit. War is not just a contest of technology. It is, above all, a contest of wills. And in Afghanistan, the will of the people to be free has proven, time and again, to be the most powerful weapon of all. As we look back at the long and bloody history of invasions in Afghanistan, a single powerful truth emerges. It is a lesson etched into the very stones of the Hindu Kush. This is a land that cannot be conquered by foreign armies. The British Empire, at the zenith of its power, was humbled. The Soviet Union, a nuclear-armed superpower, was broken. And the United States, the most technologically advanced military force in human history, was forced to withdraw. They all failed to understand that military might alone cannot defeat the will of a people to be free. The Graveyard of Empires is more than just a dramatic nickname. It shows us the limits of power. It demonstrates that a people's courage, their connection to their land, their unwavering determination can be a force more formidable than any army. The Afghans did not win by having better weapons. They won by enduring, by refusing to give up, generation after generation. Their story is a testament to the idea that the human spirit, when fighting for its own home, is unbreakable. This history is not just about Afghanistan, it is about all of us. It challenges our assumptions about power and conflict. It forces us to ask difficult questions. What is the true measure of strength? Is it the size of an army, or the resilience of a culture? The Afghan experience suggests true strength lies in the will to resist, in the patience to outlast, in the courage to fight for what you believe in. It is a lesson that every leader should remember, every general should remember, every citizen should remember. Power without understanding is blind. And in the valleys of Afghanistan, that blindness has always been fatal. The story of this unconquerable land is not over. Its future remains uncertain. Its people continue to face immense challenges, but its past offers a timeless warning. Afghanistan stands as a monument to the idea that willpower can triumph over firepower. It reminds us that some places and some people will never bow to an outside force. Because in the history of Afghanistan, we find a universal truth. The spirit of a people determined to be free is the most powerful force on earth.